This is not self-help. This is healing. Body, nervous system, wholeness. Energy medicine, Ayurveda-inspired living, herbal wisdom. Learn, heal, and be together. Wholeness isn't fixing, it's integrating. Evolve Global22's Healing Light Studio. Understanding begins here. Healing happens here. Wholeness lives within you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Evolve Global22's Healing Light Studio. This is our healing circle. It is Wednesday, March 11th, and let's get right into this. Again, welcome. I'm so pleased and grateful that you are here. I am happy that you are taking this time to spend with me for your benefit. This week we've been exploring so many things, but specifically we've been exploring how emotional awareness can begin changing the direction of our lives. On Monday, we talked about emotions as signals, how feelings often carry information about what's happening inside our lives. Yesterday, we talked about how emotional awareness begins to influence. Sorry, guys, it's been a long day and a long week, even though it's still young. So yesterday, we talked about how emotional awareness begins to influence the decisions we make, sometimes in small ways that gradually change the course of our lives. Today, we move into something even deeper. Today, we talk about patterns, because sometimes the challenge in our lives is not just one emotion. It is a repeating emotional pattern that quietly shapes our experiences again and again. We may see the same reactions appear in relationships, work environments, stressful situations, moments of opportunity, and moments of conflict, not because we are incapable, not because we are weak, but because emotional patterns are powerful. Many of them formed long before we were even aware of them. And until those patterns are noticed, they often continue guiding our reactions without us realizing it. Healing gives us the chance to see these patterns clearly. And once we see them, we have the possibility of responding differently. Human beings are pattern-forming creatures. Our brains and nervous systems learn from experience. If something in our early life required us to respond in a certain way to survive emotionally, that response becomes a habit. For example, someone who learned that conflict leads to rejection may learn to avoid confrontation completely. Someone who learned that love must be earned may become an overgiver. Someone who learned that mistakes lead to criticism may become highly self-critical. Someone who experienced instability may become extremely cautious about risk. These responses once served a purpose. They helped navigate difficult situations, but over time, those patterns can continue even when they are no longer necessary. And that is when people begin to notice something confusing. They may find themselves in similar situations again and again, the same kind of relationships, the same emotional reactions, the same frustrations, the same limitations, not because life is punishing them, but because an emotional pattern is still operating in the background. Healing helps bring those patterns into awareness, and awareness is powerful because once something is visible, we are no longer operating blindly. We can begin choosing a different response. Now, as always, my friends, let's get into this a little bit more through our learning points. Learning point number one: Emotional patterns often begin as survival strategies. Many emotional patterns formed at a time when we had limited power or limited options. Children learn quickly what responses keep them safe emotionally. They may learn to stay quiet. They may learn to please others. They may learn to avoid risk. They may learn to carry responsibility early. These patterns were often intelligent responses to the environment at the time, but survival strategies can become limiting patterns later in life. Recognizing this allows us to approach our patterns with compassion instead of shame. Learning point number 2, patterns repeat until they are understood. Many people notice similar experiences repeating in their lives. The same arguments, the same emotional triggers, the same frustrations in work or relationships. This repetition is not punishment. It is often an invitation for awareness. Life keeps presenting similar situations because the emotional pattern has not yet been examined. Once the pattern becomes visible, the repetition can begin to shift. Learning point number 3, emotional awareness interrupts automatic reactions. I want to say that one again. Emotional awareness interrupts automatic reactions. Without awareness, emotional responses happen automatically. Something triggers us, we read it immediately, but when we begin noticing patterns, something important changes. We gain a moment of pause. That pause gives us the opportunity to ask, what is happening here? What does this situation affect? Why does this situation affect me so strongly? Is my response coming from the present moment or from an older emotional pattern? This pause, my friends, is where change begins. Learning point number 4, new responses create new outcomes. Patterns do not change because we force ourselves to be different. They change when we begin responding differently in key moments. A person who usually avoids conflict might practice expressing a small boundary. Someone who usually overcommits might practice saying no once. Someone who usually retreats from opportunity might choose to try something new. Small changes in response can slowly create very different life outcomes. Healing point number 5. Healing allows patterns to soften and evolve. Healing is not about eliminating every emotional reaction. It is about becoming more conscious of how we respond to life. Over time, awareness softens patterns. We may notice we react less quickly, we recover more quickly, we pause before responding, or we choose differently. Those small shifts gradually change the trajectory of our lives. Imagine someone who begins a new project or opportunity with enthusiasm, but every time the project begins to gain visibility, they pull back, they delay, they second guess themselves, they lose momentum. At first, it may look like inconsistency, but if they look more closely, they may discover a pattern. Perhaps earlier experiences taught them that being visible leads to criticism or pressure. Their nervous system learned to retreat when visibility increases. Once they recognize this pattern, they can respond differently. Instead of withdrawing, they may choose to take one small step forward. That small shift begins changing the pattern. Let's look at this through the power of 3 lens. In energy medicine, emotional patterns can become energetic patterns in the body. Awareness allows energy to move instead of remaining locked into familiar responses.